Whilst you're challenging it, chuck it in. Don't go through a feasibility early on and not include it, and then get down to the end and think, oh, this could be a goer. And you've really probably tricked yourself into maybe a favourable return down there. Put it in, challenge it a bit, open the pipes on it and sort of go, okay, we'll do that, and see where it ends up down the bottom. And then you can dial those things if you want to go further on.
If you're really hot on the site in the area, you think, I really want to make this work. My ROI is a little bit low, then you go back in and you start to challenge your inputs rather than the comps. This might not be the best pocket for it.
Welcome to the Development Tank, powered by ReadyBuild, bringing you the best price and value in knockdown rebuild and dual occupancy projects. If you're planning a single or a dual home build, book a call with me. Just scan the QR code on your screen or visit littlefishproperty.com/call to get started. And for all the property nerds out there, head to littlefishnetwork.com/free to unlock exclusive insights, property tools, and the best online property community in the game, completely free. Let's get into the pod. Hey guys, welcome back to the Development Tank. We're back inside, gurus in the building. And if you haven't, please like, share, subscribe, littlefishnetwork.com/free. Jump in there, heaps of value going on in there, so please dive in. If you're looking for that site, if you're getting into a new area and you want to figure out, does this area work and what should I do with this development site? Is it a dual occupancy site, townhouse site, maybe a single build, a knockdown rebuild? How do you figure out which one's the highest and best use? And how do you make sense of a new area? That's what we're diving into today. Gurus here, gurus dialed in, and we're going to get you guys heaps of value. Gav, thanks for coming in.
Good to be back and looking forward to taking a different spin on the podcast today.
Different spin. You're early on in the process, you're looking for a new area. What should I do with the site? That's what we're going to dive into today. And I think fantastic for anyone listening out there, I guess that early value of what makes a good area, what makes a good development site, but then what to do with that development site and how do the numbers work, and I guess taking them from maybe a dual occupancy to a knockdown rebuild, how does it work and should we keep pursuing it?
Yeah, that's right. Quite often we've got great sites that we show people that we've won. Sometimes we show sites that we've lost or sites that have got a bit of challenge to them, but this is probably more so, I guess, an area that I've looked at a bit before in the past. And recently an agent gave me a call about an off-market site in Deep End, and it was about 3.3 mil for the land. Good development site, but just a development site. And I was thinking, I can almost buy 1,000 square metres in Brighton for, 3.3 mil. Yeah. So I just sort of thought, well, it's nearby an area that I've always sort of thought should work. Had a bit of a look at it when I first started with you guys a couple of years ago now, and it's in a very, very popular school zone.
And that's the thing, I think Deep End, for anyone playing along at home, obviously we dive into development sites here in Melbourne, but surrounded by, would you say, sort of Kew, Balwyn, where we are today. So it's a suburb that I don't think it's talked about much, but like you said, it's taken you back to Balwyn that you know a lot about, and mainly because it's popular school zones, which, that is definitely your bread and butter.
Well, that's what we go on about here on the podcast quite a bit. I mean, obviously, activity centres, all of those things, beaches, we love them. Good secondary schools, public schools are sought after, as we know, and McKinnon's one of our target areas. And there are a few others, but Balwyn High is also, if not even probably more sought after in some respects, depending on the demographic, than McKinnon. So, like I said, I've looked at it a few times before when I first started, and we weren't, there's a lot of undulation, there's significant landscape overlays. There's
a few big trees out there as well.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a few things to dodge. But when this site comes through, and I was talking to the agent and said, look, that just seems like a lot of money for a development site. So maybe I'll just go back and have another quick look around the Balwyn High School, I guess, within a couple of blocks, just to see what there was there. And sure enough, there's a site a couple of streets away at 149 Maud Street in Balwyn North. We'll go have a quick look at the map in a sec, but it's basically a standard house block. It's around 720 square metres, normal frontage, north facing. So it just started to tick a few boxes, and I thought, I'll just have a quick look up and down the street, see what there is. And there's a couple of recent sales there for over 5 mil for new houses. So
that pricking your interest, Gav, fair to say? I'm
thinking, well, I know just high level, if I'm building a single house and I'm buying land for mid twos, if I'm selling for low to mid fives, I'm probably halfway close to making some decent coin.
Yeah, for sure. So at this point, you've spent not a great deal of time on it, but you're starting to go, okay, cool, there's some nice resales around here. But even going back to seeing a site with the right orientation, the right land size, tick, fair to say if that was south and maybe had a few encumbrances, you probably would have kept driving past.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, this is walking distance to the high school and the primary school. And, I'm not even too sure if I've got a buyer for this site right now. It's probably part of the reason why we're talking about it on the podcast while it's still on the market. So it's really just sparked my interest. So I spend an hour or so on it today, and I thought it was probably a good site to maybe just have a quick chat about, to talk through the process I went through today, because that's, I guess, what people might be doing for themselves as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I think just circling back to the high school zones or whatever it might be, you mentioned villages, shopping centres, beaches, public transport, all this sort of stuff. I think, like anything, is about your unique selling point. So what are your unique selling points? And essentially, you want to stack them. You want to stack as many of them as you can. So if that's orientation, frontage, floor plan, then getting out to, recreation reserves, schools, like you just keep stacking your unique selling points. Yeah. I think with anything, when it comes time to sell or it comes time to transact and you've got those points of difference, you're going to stand out, you're going to do well, you're going to be successful. And schools is probably high up on that list, I would have thought, because, families, if they're keen to be in those zones, they will move heaven and earth, to be in those zones for their children if that's something that motivates them. So,
well, a very good example is quite close to home, where I've married into an Asian family, amazing family, big family. My mother-in-law has, I think, 5 brothers and 5 sisters, something along those lines. Right, wow. So big family, and they're all located in the inner west, but one of the families decided to move over to live in the Balwyn High School zone to put their kids through college and through high school, actually. And so they've literally moved away from the family group to the other side of town just for the school.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely a driver and definitely sort of, I guess, sucks them in. And and I think what we're about to get into now, dual occupancy, knockdown rebuild, big homes over there. I feel like I know where you're headed with this. But cultures like that really have family and being able to live close proximity or live together or live in big homes, and high school zone is a nice formula for big results.
Nice one. And for what it's worth, both kids are now doctors. But
there you go.
So that's exactly right. A great family too, great kids. So if we now go to our land checker, and I'll just zoom in here. Okay, so that patch there, that is the Balwyn High School there, and the primary school just there as well. So zooming out a bit, I can tell you we're 10 kilometres from the CBD. Mm-hmm. So, I think when we're down the southeast corridor, it's around 12 to 13, depending on which suburb we're in. So we're actually even closer to the city here. And as you said, we're travelling through Hawthorn and Kew and those areas just to get to Parklands and get to the city. So it's it's pretty good going in and around here. What I might just quickly do, if I'll click onto here, this shows the Balwyn High School. So this is on our favourite Find My School website, the government website. So you'll see that our property is just here where the arrow is, the secondary school's there. So the zone is quite large. It goes right up through Balwyn North here, and then Balwyn to the south here. And I think it does capture some of Deep End in here as well. Reason why I show you that is because this whole area here is in the school zone. So you could very easily just sort of say, well, let's just find property in the school zone. But if you think about it a bit more carefully, you've got major roads here and here. And if you've got a primary school and a secondary school, if you can get within this pocket here, obviously it's closer, but your kids a particular age will be able to walk to school, and you don't have to worry about them crossing over major roads. It's a thing.
No, 100%. And even when you zoom in, you zoom out a little bit, like what catches my eye is green as well.
Yeah.
So you look at pockets, like you say, you look at borders, major roads usually sort of cut suburbs up. And then even you look at that area which you mentioned above, more so Balwyn North, which is in the zone, but lacks, I guess, I would say green area and reserves. And then you go in the pocket where all your measurements are, and there's a lot of green space. There's a lot of green space, and there's no major roads between you and your kids and your schools. So like you said, not to be, I think people probably get it, but it's about really getting it. And, the premium that families are going to pay to be within those areas, I think you're spot on, Gav.
Well, if you were living in the middle of Balwyn North here, north of, I think it's Doncaster, you'd have to get in the car to take your kids to school. So therefore you're crossing over this main road, and you're probably going through that crossing there. And peak hour for kids dropping off at school, I can tell you there'll be a few cars around, a few forward drives going around. And another example.
A few BMWs, Gav, getting around there.
Like, we live walking distance to our kids' primary school, and I was out on the weekend riding bikes with my daughter around the block.
Yeah.
And I said, look, you ready to ride to school? She said, oh, yeah, sure, you're sure? And I said, look, I'm fine because I know that she can actually take a couple of the back streets and get directly to school. She doesn't have to cross over Jasper Road or McKinnon Road or East Boundary Road. Yeah. I'm comfortable with that. But, we were riding around the block and we got to the roundabout and there's just a lot going on, and even though she's pretty switched on and capable, I just prefer that she wasn't crossing over those roads.
Probably just stacks out a couple of years, doesn't it? Like that depending on where your proximity to the school, probably the primary school, obviously at that age, it just depends. The
bottom line is that adds value to a home with 2 or 3 kids in it.
100%. And, whether we're going a dual occupancy or a knockdown rebuild, like the dual ocks we do are 4-bedders, trying to infiltrate the family market. And obviously the knockdown rebuilds are big ones and attractive to families as well. So that school play is most likely the market that you're trying to approach.
Okay, so we're just left of the school here, probably 300 metres. So we've covered a fair bit of that. There is little vegetation on the site. You will definitely get a single crossover for a single house. Maybe the double might be a bit of a challenge, but it's all right. We're sort of just trying to get a feel for the area and for the suburb. So the significant... No, there's no landscaping overlay on this one, which is great. And the neighbourhood residential zone 3, that allows 60% coverage. So you're not restricted in any way, and particularly when you've got 720 square metres to work with.
And a great orientation, Gav. Well found.
Yep. And it does have a couple of metres of fall on it. Obviously, prefer it didn't, but, just have a look there. Across the site, again, it's a little bit painful, but we'll put the money in the project. And, if the area stacks up and you like this sort of thing, then let's just try and find one that's a bit less or something we can work with. Yeah,
and especially when you're in areas such as this where your resales are quite significant, a bit of fall can usually be worked with. I wouldn't say it's one of those deal breakers, you know what I mean? It's not the numbers in it, which we'll get to, when you're talking about multi-million-dollar site, to deal with some slope, I think's reasonable.
Yeah, look, it's in the feasibility, so let's touch on that. So let's start with whatever's first here. So side-by-side townhouses.
Okay, so Gav, just quickly, so you're going to take us from side-by-side, sort of a dual occupancy due diligence feasibility play for you figuring out highest and best use analysis, and then you're going to take us to a knockdown rebuild analysis. Just to run them both quickly through the ringer, high level guys, high level fish, numbers aren't fully dialed in, but they're going to give Gav a path forward to go, hey, which one are we going to pursue, if any?
We've been fairly generous with the numbers we've thrown into it, and then we'll look at our comps, and if we're in the ballpark, then let's try and break it. So here we are with a dual lock. So I think they're asking 2.3 to 2.5 or 2.4 to 2.5. So I've just put the top of the range in. Again, this is just high level. If it's a great site, it's probably going to go for a bit more than that. Depends on the market, how it goes. But if we've got heaps of money in the feasibility, then that's when we start to work that, our buy price up to where we think is our top of the range.
Yeah.
So, stamp duty, entity setup. So both of these examples are set up as if it was an investment play where the land and soft costs are paid for in cash, and then the rest is private finance. So different ways of skinning a cat, if you like.
Yeah, correct. But essentially, you're apples and apples with these two examples.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So we've got our planning costs in there for the dual lock, our standard PM fee. Now the build cost. Our standard ReadyBuild duals are around 30 squares each. I've put an extra 4 squares into these. So we've bumped them up. There's heaps of room on the site to do it. We know that they're larger properties in the area are favoured. So we've just pumped some extra squares into it. 34 squares, you can get something pretty comfortable, I think. Again, if you've got heaps of headroom and the market wants it, you might put a couple more in it, you might have a bigger alfresco.
I think as far as we're concerned in here, Gav, the bigger you go, even I think in these areas where, families come together and they live in big homes from a cultural point of view, but also the bigger you go, usually the more efficient the square metre rate is.
Yep.
And then, you can get that back on the resale. So I think when you can, you got to be open to it.
Yeah, look, you definitely put some into your entertainment areas, but you might then just have enough extra room to put really comfortable desk spaces or office spaces in each of the bedrooms. If you've got 2 or 3 kids who are studying at the school, they've got their own private study area, Okay, moving through here, you'll see I've captured 60,000 for earthworks. We allow about 30 grand per metre of fall. It's across the site, so you probably need every bit of that, I would suggest. Got a bit of extra in there for landscaping and fencing, just because we break that out of our costs, so we can manage that for our clients and we get a better rate. Then I've actually put in there, typically when we look in these areas, and you're probably going to say you're targeting an Asia market, they don't always typically like pools that much. So it's a bit of a 50-50, if not less, sort of play. But a few of the comps I've found actually have pools in them. So I thought, well, look, again, let's just load it up and see how it plays out.
And that's the thing as well. Like even, so this is the dual lock play, bit of a hedge your bets sort of scenario. And like you said, whilst you're challenging it, chuck it in. Don't go through a feasibility early on and not include it, and then get down to the end and think, oh, this could be a goer. And you've really probably tricked yourself into maybe a favourable return down there. Put it in, challenge it a bit, open the pipes on it and sort of go, okay, we'll do that, and see where it ends up down the bottom. And then you can dial those things if you want to go further on it.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're really hot on the site in the area, you think, I really want to make this work, but my ROI is a little bit low, then you go back in and you start to challenge your inputs rather than the comps, and then work from there. Okay, so we've got our interest on the build, private finance, and just as an easy calculation, the spreadsheet for me in the initial stage at least will spit out a number that'll equate to around 15%. That's sort of what we target. Of course, we'd love to get up closer to 20, but that's just the starting point. So again, it's just high level, are we in the mix? So that's a 2.7. Now, what I can show you again is, if I just go back to here, and I've got some comps, so we'll get the houses in a sec. I've got townhouses down here. Now, you'll see one here for 3.35. We were at 2.7, I think we needed.
Yeah.
So it's not a small number by any measure. The 3.3, that's a 3-level house on 400 square metres, and I wouldn't suggest to you that's a direct comp, but it's
a side by side, as you can see. But it's you're spot on, Gav. You got to look deeper than just a side by side, like you said. 430 square metres, assuming nearly 900 square metre development site and 3 levels, like you said.
Mind you, it is September this year, so it is current, but it's probably just a little bit above. It's not a basement, I don't think. It looks like it's just cut in. There's no floor plan to really show us how big it is. It might just be a 3-car garage under the house with a gym. Even in the photos really don't say much more than that, but again, it's a lot of money in the area. But further down, I've just got comps here to around 2.3s, I guess 2.6 and a 2.75 in July. Now, the comps that I found for the townhouses were primarily over here, a bit west to the park, and that's where I found them. I didn't really find too many side-by-sides in here, and any that I did were either very, very old or just not even worth considering. So again, what does that illustrate? Maybe if we're going to do a side-by-side, this might not be the best pocket for it, but that's not to say you're not going to do okay there. But even so, if I go back to the comps, we're sort of not quite up around that 2.7 where we need to be, and it doesn't give me a lot of confidence.
Yeah, and just even, like you say, even just to have the consistency a little bit, there's a question mark over the direct location. Is it the best way to develop that land? And I think you said before we jumped on, unless you want to rewrite the record books and rewrite, I guess, that pocket and do something against the grain a little bit, that's not something that we usually try and do.
No, we're a little more risk adverse than that. So good to know, right? So we're halfway through. So if I just flick over to the other feasibility here now. So here's another example. So same locations, a single ReadyBuild house. This is just a standard sort of plan that we've used in the past, and it would be a great starting point. It's 57 squares, so it's probably not the biggest we could do, but we've walked through this display home. It's huge. It's a great starting point.
Yep.
So what I've got here, same buy price, everything's pretty much the same. There's a bit of extra planning costs there because most of it's we've sort of got in the build anyway, but that's just a bit of extra, maybe for a bit of interior design. Not too sure if it's really that important in this area. Mind you, one of the comps does say it is, so we'll have a look at that in a sec. So the build for probably guess a standard finish is around 1.1. Then we've got our earthworks included. I just kept the fencing in there. We might just dress it up. Got this nice black ribbed fencing, so that'll cover for that. I've left the pool in for the single house.
Yep.
Again, it's not a necessity, but it's in there. What I've also done is I've included an extra 150 grand to really give it some appeal for buyers potentially, and to try and get up closer to where some of these comps are. So,
and I think, Gav, like we said earlier, this is about throwing these numbers in, and it's not a crazy amount of science. Like when you go deeper and when you're further along, you're actually putting square metre rates in for certain things. But whilst you're just going blah at a site to see where we sort of scroll down and get to, this is just to make it better. Right, 150 to make it better, and then to see where it lands.
Park-through floors, extra stone in other places, and some lighting features, really good soft furnishings, that sort of stuff. Just give it that extra sort of appeal, and also the entertainment area at the back, family home, that sort of thing. So very quick feasibility, comes in and around requiring a 5.1 for the resale, so not too bad. So let's keeping that in mind, we'll duck back over here to the comps. So I had some comps on file already, and I've actually just cut and paste them in here and then found some extras as well. And you would have seen on the map I had some lines to where the comps were. So I had some comps that were really close by, even just down the street. So I've got 89 Maud, was 5.2 mil. And I've got everything here from 5, 4.95, 5.25s, another 5.5 there, 5.3. So we're in the ballpark.
Yeah, and I think what I like seeing, Gav, obviously you always do your homework and put the comps in there, but there's just more comps. I'm putting a circle around 5.
Yep.
You know, and that's essentially where you need to be. But there's genuine consistency there. The square meter rate from a land perspective, you know, you're probably above average on that list. You know, 5, 6 bed, all fine. So yeah, and you've got lots of different orientations there. A couple of little sneaky basements in there, but not too many. You know, you've allowed pool for yours. Not all of those have pools. So yeah, so you're above average on land. Price is hitting the mark. Orientation, you've got the superior one there. So suddenly it's raising eyebrows a little bit.
Yeah, it is. One thing you will notice if we click into a couple of these comps just quickly, you'll see it's very much provincial design. You know, it's very, very popular in the area. Some of them are more opulent than others, and you know, they're big, they're spacious. What I can show you, and look, I tell you that nearly all of these on this list, they're all of this provincial design, and they're all around that 5 mil. Typically, we only ever look at sold prices, but just as a matter of interest, let's see what other people are thinking that the market's worth in that area at the moment.
And not to, like he's probably getting at, a really rough market. Poorest market we've seen in a while. So I love doing Feasos when we're in the bottom of the market. Hopefully we get a bargain on the land. But more so, there's a lot more upside for these prices.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that came up, and it was really interesting, is this site here in Ropley Avenue, Balwyn. Now, if I just quickly go over to here, you'll see this particular property is further southwest. That's 1.6 k's away. So it's definitely not walking distance to the school, but arguably maybe closer to better suburbs, if you like. So a bit of push and pull there. But taking a look at the house, it's complete contrast of everything, almost everything that I've got in my comps. Really nice design. There's a lot of things to like about this property. Now, I'm not entirely sure how the market over there would go for this sort of thing, but let's just take a quick look at this. They're asking 6.8 to 7.5. So, and it's 613 square metres. So we've got 100 square metres on that. We've got a better orientation. We're going to have a pool. This place does have a park out the back, which is nice. Always love that. But yeah, they're huge numbers. Huge numbers. I mean, really, we need 5-1. So
yeah, 100%. I think, like you sort of identified, that potentially definitely some nice things in that example that, you know, we wouldn't do, and not using it as a direct comp, like you said. You've got plenty of comps above there that are more so comparable, but just to acknowledge other sort of big deals that are going on in the area and benchmarking yourself south of that, I don't think is a bad thing to do. I don't think you can ever use it as your direct comparables, and you can't justify yours being 5 if it's 8, and you're just drawing way too long of a bow. But super encouraging to have, you know, land comparable, spec maybe a bit higher, location similar, maybe a touch better. Just, some similarities, some things that you are inferior on, but you've got nearly 2 mil of price as well there. So I think just things to help sort of, I guess, guide your decision making. The fact that people are putting that to market and chasing north of 7, I think yours gets to slip in and go, hey, look at us over here. We're sort of ticking these boxes. Yeah. And you can fit that part of the market that can't exactly afford the 7.
The one question it really raises for me too is it's completely different to everything else, right? So you're talking to your agents in the area. You might have your 3 top agents in the area and reading in between the lines with them as well. What is their core market that they sell to? But when you ask the question, you know, is there value in having something that's modern and different stuck in between all these other provincial houses? You know, is there any appeal to that? Or they might just tell you, no, mate, you're dreaming. It's not going to happen here. But it's a good question to have, because you might have something that's really appealing, modern, selling for 5.2 and completely different to the other 4 or 5 houses that are on the market within a kilometre of where you're trying to sell. So you may have a completely different product that people may be attracted to.
Well, like we know with real estate, and like anything, it's about supply and demand, isn't it? So if everyone's going down the same path of supplying these, you know, provincial style designs, and the market's flooded with them, not to say the market doesn't like them, but there could be a section of the marketplace that, you know, is craving a bit of modern, and you can be the one to supply it. So yeah, doing your due diligence, asking why, for sure.
Yeah, look, I'm not the buyer, but I know which house I'd live in.
Yeah. No, and I'm with you, Gav. Just don't have 7 on me at the moment. But no, great, Gav. And 2 great comparables showing everyone getting into a new area. What are we looking for? How do we challenge new sites? Highest and best use. Is it townhouses? Is it a knockdown rebuild? And I think a point that's relevant is that with the knockdown rebuild, look to be the way to go. I'll ask you in a second which way that you would go, Gav, but also just acknowledging the time differential and dodging town planning and, taking out that aspect of it sort of gives the knockdown rebuild a little bit of edge. But going to you, Gav, you got to that point. What would you be pursuing in this area, if anything?
I think what I'd be doing is I'd be looking for a single house site, looking for north facing, and just going back to land checker here, I'd maybe, and again, this is all high level, right? This is just a couple of hours work. If we feel this is appealing, I've got a buyer who's saying, look, I want to get in the area, this is my budget, then we're digging a lot deeper. But I'd probably start looking at, can I get a north facing place over here? Again, I'm still walking distance to the schools, closer to the parks, and maybe just through the comps that we've seen with the dual locks, maybe there's better value in here for really nice homes. Maybe looking at, I'd definitely ask a question about modern home versus a provincial, but ultimately you take the emotion out of it. And if 3 out of 3 or 5 out of 5 agents say, mate, if you do a provincial, I've got a buyer for you tomorrow at 5.2. I know what I'm doing.
Be a little bit safe, and it could be, and the answer could be very obvious, but at least you've challenged it for sure.
Absolutely.
Awesome, Gav. Well done. Going deep on highest and best use analysis and diving into not new suburb for you, but potentially things that people can learn at home when dialing into a new suburb. Thanks for coming on, Gav. We'll see you probably in a couple of weeks.
Great. Back soon.
Awesome. Please, guys, like, share, subscribe. Littlefish Network /free. Anyone that's still here, appreciate you. I know you are, Fisher. Good one there. Lots of lessons that can be translated into any area, any market, all the things you should be thinking about. Happy developing.